If you walk out that door for a grease monkey like Elias, don't bother taking our name with you. You'll be dead to this family.
My father, Arthur, didn't even look up from the leather-bound ledger on his desk. He spoke with the clinical coldness of a man calculating a bad debt. My mother, Beatrice, stood by the fireplace, her fingers nervously polishing a set of vintage pearls she valued more than her own daughter's happiness. They didn't care that Elias was the only person who truly saw me, not as a social asset to be traded in a corporate merger, but as a woman with her own fire. To them, he was just a boy with grease under his fingernails, and a bank account that didn't justify his existence in our world. He has more integrity in his pinky finger than this entire board of directors, I snapped, my voice trembling with a mix of fury and heartbreak. Integrity doesn't pay for the lifestyle you've enjoyed, Sloane, Beatrice interjected, her voice sharp as a razor. You are making a mistake you can never undo. I looked at the two people who were supposed to protect me, realizing they were actually the ones holding the knife. They hadn't just insulted Elias, they had used their influence to blacklist him from every reputable workshop in the city, ensuring he stayed as small as they believed him to be. I gripped my backpack, the weight of it a sudden comfort. Then consider me dead, I whispered. I walked out into the rain where Elias was waiting by his beat-up truck. He looked at me, his eyes full of a guilt I didn't want him to feel. He tucked a crumpled $200 into my hand, his last bit of savings, and promised he'd find a way to be worthy. That was the last time I saw him for 7 years. For the first 2 years, I lived in a studio apartment. I worked as a night shift data entry clerk while finishing my degree, fueled by the memory of my mother's smirk when she told me I'd be crawling back within a month. Every time my fingers cramped at 3:00 a.m., I looked at the crumpled $200 bill Elias had given me. I never spent it. It was my battery. The gaslighting from my parents didn't stop just because I left. Every few months, Beatrice would send a pity text disguised as an update. Your father's heart is struggling, Sloane. If only you hadn't been so selfish for a boy who clearly abandoned you. They wanted me to believe Elias had moved on, that he was just a drifter who had used me to get close to their wealth. They almost succeeded. By year 4, I stopped looking for his name in the news. I buried my heart and replaced it with a ruthless obsession for corporate strategy. I climbed. I didn't just work, I hunted. I became the woman who could spot a company's weakness from a mile away. I joined Vancorp Holdings, a firm known for eating legacy brands like my father's for breakfast. I became their youngest chief strategy officer, a ghost in a power suit. I had a corner office, a high-limit black card, and a reputation for being ice cold. But deep down, I was still the girl standing in the rain, waiting for a truck that never came back. I thought I had forgotten him until my firm received an anonymous mandate to oversee the aggressive restructuring of Everly Prestige, my parents' crown jewel. The hunter was finally heading home. I walked past the portrait of my father, Arthur, looking like a king from a forgotten era. He didn't recognize me at first when I stepped into the conference room. Why would he? I wasn't the girl in the hoodie anymore. I was the woman holding the scythe. We were told the CEO of the acquiring firm would be here personally, my father blustered, his face a shade of panicked gray. We are facing a baseless defamation suit and a liquidity freeze. We need a partner, not a predator. You don't get to choose your predators, Arthur, I said, sliding my glasses down. The room went silent. My mother, Beatrice, gasped so loud it echoed. Sloane, what is this? This costume? She stammered, her eyes scanning my tailored blazer. Have you come to mock us in our hour of need? We are fighting for our legacy. Your legacy is built on a pile of debts and outdated ego, I replied, sitting at the head of the table. And the man who owns those debts isn't me. I just run the numbers. The double doors opened and a heavy silence draped over the room. A man stepped in, flanked by 3 lawyers. He didn't look like a grease monkey. He looked like the sun, blinding and untouchable. Elias. He had filled out, his shoulders broad, his jawline like granite. He didn't look at my parents. He walked straight to the chair next to mine and put his hand on the table. On his wrist was a watch that could have bought my father's entire car collection. The boy they blacklisted was now the man who owned their signatures. Elias, my father's voice cracked, a pathetic high-pitched sound. You're the head of Apex Tech, but you were a mechanic, you were nothing. I was a mechanic with a patent for a hydrogen injection engine, Arthur, Elias said, his voice a calm, dangerous hum. The one you tried to steal before you had me fired. Remember. Beatrice tried to stand, her pearls clinking against the table. Elias, darling, we were just protective. You have to understand the social pressure. I understand everything, Beatrice, Elias interrupted. He leaned back and looked at me, a flicker of something raw and unfinished passing between us. Sloan, give them the news. I don't want to waste any more of my breath on people who think integrity is a dirty word. I opened the folder. The defamation suit wasn't baseless. It was filed by 12 former employees you cheated out of their pensions. Apex Tech has purchased those claims, along with your outstanding bank loans. I leaned forward, savoring the moment the blood drained from my mother's face. The social merger you wanted for me 7 years ago, it's happening, but you're not the ones making the deal. You're the assets being sold. The viral moment happened then. My father, in a fit of desperate rage, lunged across the table to grab the papers, screaming that I was an ungrateful child. He tripped, spilling his cold coffee all over his legacy ledger. I didn't move. I just watched him scramble on the floor, looking exactly as small as he tried to make Elias feel. I pulled out my phone and hit send on the internal memo. The dissolution of Everly Prestige was now public. By the time we walked out of the building, the news had hit the trades. The prestigious Everlys were being dismantled by their own daughter and the man they once treated like trash. Reporters were already gathering at the entrance. It was a bloodbath. My mother tried to hide her face with her silk scarf, sobbing about decency and family values. Decency, I asked, stopping on the marble steps. Was it decent to tell me I was dead to you? Was it decent to blacklist a man for being poor? We did it for you, Beatrice shrieked, her voice caught on a camera mic. We wanted you to have a life, and look at you, you're a cold, heartless machine. He turned you against us. Elias stepped forward, his presence commanding the entire crowd into silence. She didn't need me to turn her, Beatrice. You did that all by yourselves the night you put a price tag on her heart. He looked at the cameras, his face a mask of iron. Every asset under the Everly name will be liquidated. The proceeds will go to the pension fund you tried to rob. You wanted to be remembered for your name. Now you'll be remembered for your greed. The crowd erupted. Someone shouted a question about forgiveness, and I saw my father look at me with a spark of hope, the same manipulative light he'd used my whole life. I looked him dead in the eye and felt nothing, no anger, no hate, just the cold realization that the relic was finally broken. I turned my back on them and walked toward Elias' car. I didn't look back when I heard my mother scream my name one last time. We sat in the back of the SUV, the city blurring past in a streak of neon and rain. The silence between us wasn't heavy, it was a bridge. Elias reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, tattered piece of paper. It was a photo of me from 7 years ago, taken the night we met at the diner. I never stopped, he whispered. I built every line of code, every engine, and every deal just to get back to those steps. You didn't have to prove anything to me, Elias, I said, my voice finally breaking. I knew who you were the second I saw you under that truck. I know, he said, taking my hand. But I had to prove it to them. I had to make sure they knew that the nobody was the only one who could save them, and then choose not to. The payoff wasn't the money or the company. It was the moment we walked into my new office at Apex Tech. On the wall was a framed $200 bill, the one he'd given me in the rain. We signed the final dissolution papers for my parents, firm together, ending the Everly legacy forever. My parents ended up in a two-bedroom rental, stripped of their titles and their friends, finally living the life they had mocked Elias for. As for us, we didn't just build a new company, we built a life where your name is something you earn, not something you use to crush others. The nobody and the dead daughter were finally home, and the world was finally listening. Arthur and Beatrice lost everything because they chose pride over their own daughter. Now that they're broke and alone, do you think Sloane should give them a small allowance to survive, or let them experience the nobody life they were so afraid of? Let me know in the comment section. Don't forget to subscribe, like and share this video if you think greed always backfires.